There was a woman who arrived at the gates of heaven. And while she was waiting for St. Peter to greet her, she peeked through the gates. And she saw this beautiful banquet table, and seated around that table were her parents and all the people she knew and loved who had died before her. And they saw her and they began waving and saying, "Hello, how are you? We've been waiting for you. Good to see you." And when St. Peter came by, she said to him, "Wow, this is such a wonderful place. How do I get in?" And he said, all you have to do is spell a word. "Which word?" the woman said. And he said, "Love." Well, Love. And St. Peter welcomed her into heaven. A year or so later, St. Peter came to the woman and he asked her to watch the gates of heaven that day. And while she was standing there, her husband arrived. "Oh, I'm so surprised to see you. How have you been?" "Oh, I've been doing pretty well since you died," the husband said. "I married that beautiful young nurse who took care of you while you were ill. And then I won the lottery. And I sold that little house, that dinky little house we lived in, and I bought a huge mansion. And my wife and I, we traveled all around the world. And we were on vacation in Cancun. And today I went water skiing and I fell and I hit my head and here I am. What a bummer. How do I get in?" And the woman said, "All you have to do is spell a word." "Which word?" he asked. "Czechoslovakia." There's a moral to that story. Never make your wife angry. So I have started a series on a book by Karen Armstrong. It's the 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life. And she's a best-selling author. She also wrote A History of God, which was a really good book too. And so we have some of these in our bookstore, and we would love for you to join us in the study. And every Sunday after service, we have Sunday school, and we discuss that day's lesson. And so I'm going to read to you something from a book called The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. I really love this book, and this is one of the day's readings that I saw a long time ago. In loving ourselves, we love the world. For just as fire, rock, and water are all made up of molecules, everything, including you and me, is connected by a small piece of the beginning. Yet, how do we love ourselves? It is as difficult at times as seeing the back of your head. It can be as elusive as it is necessary. Mark says, "I have tried and tripped many times. And I can only say that loving yourself is like feeding a clear bird that no one else can see. You must be still and offer your palm full of secrets like delicate seeds. And as she eats your secrets, no longer secret, she glows and you lighten, and her voice, which only you can hear, is your voice bereft of plans. And the light through her body will bathe you till you wonder why the gems in your palm were ever fisted. Others will think you crazed to wait on something no one sees. But the clear bird only wants to feed and fly and sing. She only wants light in her belly. And once in a great while, if someone loves you enough, they might see her rise from the nest beneath your fear. In this way, I have learned that loving yourself requires a courage unlike any other. It requires us to believe in and stay loyal to something that no one else can see, that keeps us in the world, our own self-worth. It's a complex little paragraph, and I read it over and over to myself because, that clear bird didn't make sense to me at first. But that statement about loving myself being as difficult as seeing the back of my head, that made pretty much sense. All of the great moments of conception, the birth of the mountains, the trees, fish, the birth of prophets, and the truth of relationships that last, all begin where no one else can see. And it's our job not to extinguish what is so beautifully begun. For once full of life, everything is safely on its way, not pain-free, but unencumbered. And the air beneath your wings, the air beneath my wings, is the same air that we all breathe. When we believe in what no one else can see, we find we are each other. In all moments of living, no matter how difficult, come back into some central point where self and the world are one. Where light pours in and pours out all at the same time. And once I'm there, once I'm in that place where light's pouring in and light's pouring out, where I'm feeling one with you and one with the world, that moment, whatever it may be, it is a fine moment. And it's a fine moment to live, and it would be a fine moment to die. And so we're continuing our book, this 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life, and we're on steps 3 and step 4. And step 3 is compassion for yourself. And step 4 is empathy for others. In the book, Karen writes that she used to only focus on that first part of the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself. So let's rethink that rule for a minute. What about treat yourself as you would have others treat you? Love yourself as you would have others love you. In chapter 3, she tells the story of Rabbi Albert Friedlander, and the rabbi taught her that if you cannot love yourself, you cannot love other people. He shared that he grew up in Nazi Germany and that when he was an 8-year-old, he was very bewildered and distressed by all of the anti-Jewish propaganda that was pointed at him. And one night he lay awake in his bed. He purposely made a list of all of his good qualities. And he told himself firmly, I am not what they say about me. years old, knew that he had special gifts, that he had talents of the heart and mind, and he reviewed them over and over, one by one. And he vowed that if he lived, he would use these qualities to build a better world. Can you imagine a child at 8 having those insights? Can you imagine yourself at 8 having those insights? How many of you had those insights when you were 8? How many of those had those insights when you were 28? I see a hand or two. Yeah. How many of you are able to see those, have those insights today? Oh, good. Many more hands. Many more hands. Thank goodness. We are not just standing up here speaking. Karen goes on to say that he is the kindest person that she has ever met, and that he is gentle to a fault, and that he has brought help and counsel to thousands of people. And he told her that he could not have done any of the things he did if he had not, under those worst circumstances, at the age of 8, learned to love himself. Sanaya Roman, an author who wrote Living with Joy, says, people who love themselves come across as the very loving, generous, and kind. They express their self-confidence through humility, forgiveness, and inclusiveness. Does that not paint a picture different than what we might think? Have you not heard that self-loving people are not that? To practice the golden rule, you and I have to have self-knowledge. We have to be self-observant. If we treat ourselves harshly, we are most likely going to treat others harshly as well. We need to acquire a more healthy and balanced knowledge between our strengths and our weaknesses. Karen suggests that we work through the steps that we do just exactly what the rabbi did, to make a list of our good qualities and our achievements. And many of you here have participated in an exercise with a little card that says, "Who have I come here to be?" where we list the people that we admire, and we list the qualities or the attributes of those people, and then we recognize that for us to be able to recognize those qualities in others, we must possess those qualities ourselves. I went on the internet and I found an exercise. It is on how self-compassionate are you? What types of things do you typically judge and criticize yourself for? Nobody does that? Jill, what do you criticize yourself for?
Being overweight.
Being overweight. And yet you're a beautiful, loving, wonderful person, and that's not what I think about you whenever I see you at all. You judge yourself about that. What's something else we judge ourselves about?
Being unfriendly towards my computer.
Being unfriendly towards your computer. Yes, well, we pray for those quite often. Oh, Lord, please take this computer. Jim.
Being too quick to anger.
Being too quick to get angry.
And I'm working on it.
And yet, anger is a feeling. It's an emotion that we have, and we just want to be aware. Oh, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Think about it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being angry. It's how we use that anger. What's something else Phyllis?
I judge myself for being judgmental.
You judge yourself for being judgmental. Impatient.
Not meditating enough.
Not meditating enough. Oh, yes. Yes. Not exercising enough.
Yes.
Not calling enough people.
Not eating healthy enough.
Not eating healthy enough.
Either doing too much or not doing enough.
Doing too much, not doing enough.
Not being perfect.
Not being perfect.
The key is balance.
The key is balance.
Forgetting things.
Forgetting things. Oh, gosh. Forgetting things.
Losing it and yelling at the kids.
Losing it and yelling at the kids. You know, there are all the way. Those are some of the ways we criticize ourselves. And what a personal inventory item for me is, and I have been with some of you, and some of you have shared with me that I put myself down. That I don't always talk positively about myself. Do any of you do that? Do you say to yourself, is there any time you say to yourself that if somebody else said to you, you'd be mad? Yeah. And what's unfortunate is we say them out of habit, and that habit eventually becomes a core belief. So what are the consequences of us being so hard on ourselves? But when we're so hard on ourselves, does it make us feel motivated and happy?
No.
Does it make us feel discouraged and depressed? How do you think you would feel if you could truly love and accept yourself exactly as you are? If at this moment when you walked out of here today, you just said, I am a divine child of God, and I am showing up in the very best me I can at this moment. Does that possibility scare you or give you hope? Or maybe both? There's a song that goes, I love myself the way I am. There's nothing I need to change. I'll always be the perfect me. There's nothing to rearrange. In this chapter, as we talk about looking at ourselves, we also talk about about ourselves being, looking at loving ourselves and our self-worth. But we also look at that part that we don't want to look at, our shadow side. And psychologists define the shadow as a mechanism that enables us to disguise from our consciousness, from our conscious waking selves, the less savory motives, desires, and inclinations that influence our thoughts and behaviors and can sometimes surface as dreams. In other words, the negative side of our personality. The sum total of all those unpleasant qualities that we would prefer to hide. The book says the shadow is a dim cavern that holds your dark, forbidden feelings, secret wishes, and creative urges. And what I want you to notice is not all of that is negative. Wishes that we have kept from ourselves, our creative urges that we have not allowed ourselves to feel. And that phenomenon is called the golden shadow. It's as if we have a not so good shadow and a good shadow. Because in that shadow part of ourselves that we push away, that we hide, are these gems of positiveness. For example, if we consider ourselves not good enough, or if we feel inadequate, our shadow might hold confidence. if we don't want to take responsibility and we don't want to step up into leadership, our shadow may hold great leadership qualities. Maybe we have accepted a standard of life that is just average. And I don't mean that so much as possessions, just ho-hum living. Maybe we've accepted that because that's the way everybody around us is, our family and our friends. And in the shadow is greatness and ambition. And how many of us were told when we were kids, you can't sing. In our shadow is a great voice. I haven't found it yet.
It's in the shower.
In the shower, that's right. Not in the shadow, in the shower. Our creativity could be in the shadow. Yeah. Our creativity can be in our shadow if we've never expressed it, allowed ourselves to express it. I mean, how many of you took art classes when you were little and there was somebody that came up with something beautiful and you came up with something that was less than beautiful? And right then and there, you decided, I can't do this. How many of us have taken a painting class and after the third painting class looked at the painting we've done and said, oh, I can't do this? When it's kind of proven that it takes 10,000 hours to perfect a craft. How many of us have stopped after 5 or 10? In The Artist Way, Julia Cameron speaks of trusting our creativity is new behavior. We have so identified with the shadow of not being enough, not being smart enough, not being creative enough, and we all know those, that we have to begin to shift into letting that golden shadow emerge. And as we do, she says it's going to look messy. But it gets better. But first we make mess. And in the same way as when we work on our shadow, as we gain strength here, our shadow gains strength, it looks a little messy and a little chaotic. And our job is to keep up the work. To see that both and, to find balance. When I was a kid, being silly was not allowed. Any of you grew up in a house where being silly wasn't allowed? Yeah. To settle down. What's so funny? Or if you've ever laughed at your parents at the wrong time, you were told not to knock it off. And what happens is deep down in our dungeon, we become suppressed and we forget how to be silly and to laugh and have fun. And we grow up and we want to be, we go out into the world and we want to look, the word I'm looking for is not perfect. But we want to, when we show up for a job interview, we want to look professional. How many of you have spent a lifetime trying to be professional? Yeah. Does silly fit in the same? No.
Yes.
You say yes. Unfortunately, I will tell you, at a Big 8 accounting firm or a Big 6 accounting firm now, silly was never really considered,
Counted, I am not.
You had a navy blue suit, a black suit, a gray suit. Little shirts with little ties. And what I found when I went to ministerial school is there were people just laughing everywhere, having this great time, being silly, and I'm sitting there looking at them like this. Well, that's not ministerial. The one thing I've learned is if you can't laugh at yourself, you best not get up here. Because you're going to be doing things in the shower, whether you like it or not. Karen suggested that another area for us to work on is the areas to acknowledge where we have suffered. And I know that doesn't sound very unity-like. We often don't want to admit we are in pain. And many times we're taught to just suck it up. And even in unity, we say, focus on the positive. Because what we focus on grows. And I believe that firmly. But with this caveat, I passionately believe that we must acknowledge our pain. I don't mean we have to build a tent and stay there. But we have to feel those feelings, and we have to do it as long as it takes for us to be able to move on. Because when we move on, that's where we begin to even be more positive. That's where we have great expansive growth. And I know that it's tricky to figure out how long you stay in the pain and when do you move. And I would suggest that having a spiritual counselor, a spiritual director, a confidant, a mental health counselor is one of the healthiest things that you can do. Armstrong suggests that we look at all the painful events in our life that have caused us suffering. The death of a person, somebody that we love, the death of a pet, loneliness, fear, rejection, thinking about when someone says something unkind to us, thinking about the betrayals we've had in our life. And then, after we think about it, we can look at how we've overcome, we can look how far we've come, and we can have empathy and compassion for ourselves. We can love ourselves in the midst of that thought. We can send encouragement to that self that has suffered. She suggests that you can do it mentally or that you could actually write a letter to yourself or visualize that inner support person giving you a hug and supporting you in a way that is loving. And the reason we're talking about this is because it's only when we do this, it's only when we love ourselves, and it's only when we recognize our own hurts and have compassion for ourselves that we can begin to have compassion for someone else. It's only when we recognize our own sorrow that we're able to understand someone else's sorrow. I like what the Buddhist calls suffering. Dukkha. D-U-K-H-A. I like the sound of that. That's a bunch of dukkha. What do you think? The Buddhist explained being forced into proximity with what we hate is suffering. Being separated from what we love is suffering. Not getting what we want is suffering. So becoming aware of these things, our own dukkha, it's critical to our evolution and consciousness and our compassion for ourselves to be compassionate for others. As I have compassion for myself, I can have compassion for others. As I can feel my own feelings, I can understand your feelings. As I realize what I think and feel, and I'm easy on myself, I can be easier on you. You and I create bonds because of shared experiences. And if we want peace in this world, that's what has to happen. We have to be able to look across the aisle, across the border, across the sea, and see common shared experiences. When we do that, we then find it very hard to judge someone else. If we can recognize our own suffering, if we can recognize our own foibles, pardon me, if we can be kind to ourselves, that gives us the ability to be kind to all of those that we think it might be hard to be kind to. It is that, how we treat ourselves, that allows us to keep from labeling, classifying, judging other people. And in here, you and I have done before a Buddhist meditation on the 4 immeasurable minds of love. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to tell you what they are. Maitri is loving kindness, the desire to bring happiness to all sentient beings. Karuma, which is compassion, the resolve to liberate all creatures from their pain. Mudita, sympathetic joy, which takes delight in the happiness of others. And Apkisha, even-mindedness, an equanimity that enables us to love all beings equally and impartially. And it's called the loving kindness meditation. And so when you came in, you were given a little card that says, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, may you never be separated from your bliss, and may you live with ease. And I would like for you to practice that this week. I'd like that to be your go-to meditation, your go-to prayer. If you need more of them, we can print more of them. I'd like for you to have it in your car. And when you make a mistake and somebody honks their horn at you and you know it's you, then you turn it around. You say, may I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I never be separated from my bliss. May I live with ease. And when that person pulls in front of you, may you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you never be separated from your bliss. May you live with ease. This week, when you hear yourself say something like, that was stupid of me to do that. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I never be separated from my bliss. May I live with ease. I don't know what it is that you say to yourself that is the negative thing. And I hope that there's some of you in here who never do that. But my guess is that some of you are like me and are not loving yourself nearly enough to love everyone else. Our goal is to love ourselves so much that we can love you so much, and that we can love the person next door so much, and that we can love the person across the ocean so much. Bless you.